So, welcome back to the GOWYLD Podcast. We've decided to switch it up a little bit. I've brought in a co-host in John. So, John was part of the 2 Q&A things I did last year where me and you talked about artist development and marketing and all that sort of stuff. And you were so good, / I couldn't find anyone else, that I decided to bring you back to come and help be a co-host.
Yeah.
So, I thought to kick off the year, I would do like a look back on 2020 because it was a year.
Mate, it was a year. A year I want to get rid of, most of it.
I know, but for me, I'm like, I don't know. I was looking back at it and I was like, what can we learn from it? What's actually something that we can take away from it? And what, during my, I suppose, year of it, what's some of the things that I took away that maybe could help other people with it?
So I guess the title could be, what did WYLD learn last year?
2020 was a wild year.
2020 was a wild year. So what you got? I'll tell you one thing that I know happened this year before you even start going about what you learned is there was a wedding this year, right? Or there was wedding music.
Yeah, so we released the wedding music from 2019. So that was in Feb, which is great. That was one way to try and pay for the wedding. But it hasn't paid for the wedding.
That's what I was going to say. Did it work?
We went from kind of like such extremes. I think like January to March was kind of like the bedding in period of like different relationship, trying to like relearn like how the relationships works. Like you're suddenly living together. We started long distance, went to like living in Manchester, so like the same area, to like then from March not being able to see anyone else but each other.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like 3 extremes. But yeah, we released all the music for the wedding, and it's already been used in a few weddings, which has been amazing. Sick. It was weird because I was watching my friend's wedding and I forgot they were using the walk-in music. So I was watching it on a live stream, and then suddenly the brides were walking in. The music starts playing. I went, oh, this sounds familiar. Wait, this is my song.
Mate, I went to the movie with a guy. You know, Geek Boy.
Yeah.
If you like. I went to the movies with him once, and we were sitting there watching an advert. Right, and he was like, I know this song. He's like, why do I know? And he just went, oh yeah, this is my song. I'm like, how is it that this is just so casual that you were involved in this song? And it's just like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see it in different places, and a few people have asked to use it within, or we gave people permission to use it in like wedding videos and for people to use the music within their first dance and stuff. So it's been cool to see the response to that. I don't think I expected it to do as well as what it did.
Oh, that's cool. How did it do? Like, because I don't really know how it is now.
People still listen to it now, which I even still think is weird. Because I kind of just put it out there as kind of like a resource for other people, because like I wrote it because there wasn't a song that I wanted out there for my wedding. I didn't think there was anything that fitted the Christian relationship love song vibe. Because you're either going to go down one road of like having something really just like cliche that's like, I don't know, I can't even think of a cliche wedding song right now.
All of Me by John Legend. I sung that at my brother's wedding.
Yeah, there we go. Something like that, or something really overtly, weirdly sexual, like just because now you can, and then, or like something really Christian that doesn't really make sense. We're trying to wedge something within a what, and like a lot of our family were like non-Christians anyway, so it was that, how do you get across the Christian values of a wedding in a song that isn't weird?
No, definitely. Do you think this is just a thought, do you think there's too much emphasis from Christians about the sex thing? Because I know you said there, you were like, then it's all about having sex. It's like you can do nothing and then you can do everything, and that's kind of the point of getting married. It's
such a weird, like, that was a weird switch. You get told that it's bad your whole life.
No.
Like leading up. Yeah, exactly. You get told it's bad your whole life, and then like you get married, and then it's like, oh, it's a wonderful thing. And you're like, well, hang on, like yesterday you told me it's bad, and then today now it's a wonderful thing. The best way someone described it to me was like, think of it as like Christmas, like it's a present under the tree that is like there to be unwrapped on Christmas Day. Because we dated for 6 years. And like
6 years. I mean, see, even that's countercultural with the Christian thing, because everyone basically, like, I've been dating Lucy for nearly 2.5 years, and literally after a year, I have people come up and say, "Oh, you know, you need to get married now," and it's almost as a man, it's almost like a pressure that I devalue Lucy by not proposing to her after a year. It's weird. 6 years is mad.
There was kind of one of those cliche tweets that was like, you know, when you're ready to get married, when you've gone through financial hardship, you've gone through a family loss, you've gone through X, Y, like all of this stuff. And we'd gone through all of that. If we got married within a year, then we would have had to figure out me having like no money, her mum dying, and then like trying to move from Guernsey to Manchester while me trying to set up a business. And everything kind of like worked out nicely because we got to the point where I was kind of stable within my business. The after effects of her mum passing had kind of like, we managed to get it sorted, but it wasn't like straight after. But also like have the solid foundation where we knew each other well enough to be able to just suddenly move straight in. And then, like I say, like when all the lockdowns happened, you kind of know each other anyway. So you kind of know how each other operate because you've been together so long without the pressure of being married on it.
So I know you, I would say, quite well now. I've known you for a good few years. Now, everything that ever happens as WYLD, there's always like a proper plan. What was the plan this year? Because I always view you as a guy who properly plans well, you know?
Yeah, well, we had 2 releases. So we had Hear You, which came out March, I think it was, and the wedding stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't much. You were on that one. Do you remember that song?
I was on that. I remember that song. That is, you know, I've done loads of songs in the years, and the one that's my girlfriend's favourite is the one that Paul wrote. So, oh, you didn't write. You wrote with a few people that I sang on. Yeah. So, a part of me's a little bit bitter about that song, but I do love it. I do love it.
So those were the 2 main things, but there wasn't. I can't remember having like anything written. I think sometimes normally I've got like, I'll get to December in a year, and then in December, that's when I'll go, okay, what have I got written? Like what tracks have I got, or who have I been eyeing up to work with, or who am I chatting to that I want to work with? And then kind of formulate an idea or a structure of the year of going, well, okay, I've got these 2 songs that we're going to release, like the wedding song, we've got video working on that, we've got Hear You. But then after that, it was kind of strange because there wasn't really anything in between. And then there wasn't, and most of the time in December as well, I'll really kind of figure out what God wants me to be putting out or what type of stuff he wants me to be putting out, what releases and that sort of stuff. Sometimes you kind of get like a theme for the year and whatnot. There kind of wasn't anything. And I'm okay with that in some senses because I can kind of just go with the flow and see what happens with it. But yeah, it was a bit odd, but you kind of like see what happened after Hear You gets released, and then like within a space of a week, you go from like, I went out, like in March, I went out for my birthday on the 15th, and the next week you weren't allowed to leave home. So it's like suddenly everything changes. So even if I did have plans, and how much of that would have been able to happen. Yeah. And looking back, I don't think I struggled too much with the concept of being locked down. There was just other stuff mentally that was going on. And especially now when you look down, we're in the 3rd one at the moment, and it's like, this one feels a bit harder because there isn't the excitement's not the right word, but do you know what I mean? Like there's like an excitement around like, we've all got to stay home. Like, like
a novelty almost. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of worn off now in the sense of like,
Totally agree.
But then there wasn't a lot that really changed for me. I'm self-employed. I work from home. I'm in my office now. Yeah. I would be doing this anyway. There's just the little things around it that changed, like not being able to go out and see your friends, not being able to go for a coffee somewhere. Like those sorts of like little things started happening. And I think the first week or so within that's kind of where the Solitude project came in. And that's kind of when the ideas came around to...
And that was the idea behind the Solitude project, wasn't it, from what I understand?
Yeah, it was just gather people. Because it was a worldwide thing, so it's like we wanted to kind of capture a moment that could be used in the future stuff, but also create like a community kind of feeling within it. So there was like this kind of support network for smaller artists, giving them the opportunity to work with bigger people and that sort of thing. So me and Stephen, who runs Amen Worldwide, who helps manage me, like we kind of came together to put that out and really solidify the idea, and that all of that stuff like went from 0 to 100. Like I think I said a few times, like I put the idea out on my Instagram and had 60 artists saying yes within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So suddenly you want to ride the wave because you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to do this thing, do you want to be involved? And then not do anything for a week, because the excitement wears off of doing a project. So we had to like turn that around really quickly. So like from March to June, my whole life was just Solitude project.
Mate, that was a mad one. How did it go? Well, how did it go? Was it, as in from your perspective, because you usually work remotely, I'm right in thinking that, aren't I, when you do music? So it wasn't that difficult for you, I'd imagine.
No, I think people management has always been a thing that I'm not well, I'm getting better at. I wasn't very good at it like a few years ago. I'm very opinionated, isn't the wrong. I'm very blunt in how I say stuff.
You are very opinionated. It's good though. I like it.
Yeah. And I'm also I'll just say how it's like. I'll say it how it is.
Not in a bad way though. I realise if it's a podcast, people are listening. It's when I say that, it's lovingly. It's not like a bad thing.
I feel like people will come to me when they actually want to know what something is. Like people will show me their songs because they actually want an opinion on it, or they actually want feedback on it. And I'll give like honest feedback, but not in a harsh way. I'll tell you something that if the mix doesn't sound good, and I'll give you like how I would change it.
Yeah.
If you send me a song, I'm not going to go, oh, this is rubbish.
No.
Stop.
No. You do. I remember I sent you one the other day, and you were basically like, yeah, man, it's just a bit average. And I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah, great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. How did you cope with, because obviously you're in the Solitude, how did you cope being away from the normal like busyness of life? You know, like the I don't know, going to the gym, doing this, you know what I mean? That stuff that you used to kind of wind down, I guess.
Yeah, that was hard. And I think we just switched churches as well. So we just went to a new church plant. We just kind of got bedded in. And then obviously all the churches like closed down. I have a history of anxiety and depression. So kind of had all these like good coping mechanisms within it, where leading up to the wedding, I would be in the gym 4 times a week, which kind of after the wedding went to like 2 times a week.
Getting ripped and then slowly. We were saying this before the podcast started. It's weird how everyone works really hard to get to a point where they look really good for their wedding photos, and then everyone just gets fat after they get married.
Exactly. You've already won, so you don't need to care. So like that was kind of one thing, and then the kind of losing a routine a little bit as well, of because like my wife's suddenly at home. So she's a key worker because she works in a pharmacy. Like she was kind of at home and kind of not. So the whole routines thing kind of gets flipped on its head. And then like my whole life was just dedicated to the Solitude project, which was like a 24/7 thing, because you're working over multiple time zones. So you're trying to make sure that everyone's okay. So you kind of, when you start working, you're in like UK mode to making sure the UK people are. And then when like 3 o'clock kind of hits, like here, that's like 10 a.m. in the US. And then you're trying to figure out US people. We had people in Germany, someone in Australia as well. So like, working with the people in Australia, you're either talking to them at like 8 in the morning or like 12 at night.
It's a madness.
Yeah, I think there was kind of a lot of things that came up, and I just started, because all the churches kind of closed down, they went online. So being a music producer within the church finally came handy, because then I started doing all the music production stuff for church online. So, you know, I kind of had a day a week job, which was, you know, having a paid job at that time was pretty much like a lifeline. I'd gone from leading a music school, which was going to leave in September. I really felt like I should leave it. So I already put my notice in. And then, you know, 2 weeks later, it was kind of like, oh, well, we're going to have to stop it anyway. So that job kind of comes in. So I'm still doing it to this day. I'm just MDing now for live services. But like when I look back at how I operated in that point, I was all over the place, like mentally. It got to the point of where my wife like said to me, it's like, you're not okay. You need to sort yourself out. Like my anxiety was through the roof. There was one day.
Sounds like a good wife though.
Exactly. Like I say, we both know how each other operate. Like that length of time meant that she recognized that it it was over the span of one weekend. On the Friday, she was like, I don't think you're okay. We need to figure something out. And I remember on the Sunday, I was just lying on the sofa and my head was just like, it just felt like there was loads of static in my head. Like, it's almost not like screaming voices, but it's like I just couldn't think anything. It was just like constant like in my head, on edge the whole time. And I was like, okay, I need to figure something out here. I need to sort myself out.
What was the next step of figuring that out, I guess?
So I'd worked with this company before when they help DJs, and they do a load of stuff in Ibiza as well, kind of like Christian DJs in Ibiza, angels, that sort of thing. I can't remember what they're called. But an off plant of that was they set up a counselling group for people like DJs and people working in the music industry. So I literally just like went, oh, sod it, I'll just do it. So I sent an email and they got back, and I just started doing counselling once every 2 weeks and having a space where I knew I could talk about things really helped. I know that this Thursday, I can go and I've got an hour and a half where I can just go and talk through my stuff. Someone asked me questions about why you're feeling that sort of way, what's going on. And then I started to see things kind of get better. And there were certain other bits within like where my job was and what I was doing where I also had to make changes and kind of really figure that out. But yeah, it's the counseling's really helped like get my head clearer. Because sometimes you're just like, I don't know why I'm feeling like this or thinking this way. And when you start talking about it and someone just goes, like prods a few questions here, there and everywhere, then you suddenly start going, oh, well, it's because I'm doing it with this person and this person, like me and this person aren't necessarily working together that well, or, anything like that. So that was kind of the starting point of kind of really getting better in myself.
And this was about halfway through the year, I'm guessing, wasn't it? That's where we are. I know we're trying to do a review of the year. Yeah, we're going quite, in my head, I'm going, we're about halfway through the year, I think.
Yeah, now. This is like between March and June, I suppose.
Yeah. And, but then was kind of the BLM stuff. Do you remember all the BLM? I mean, this year has been insane when you think about it. First of all, we have the lockdown. And then it goes into the BLM stuff. So this is while we're in lockdown, from what I remember, isn't it, as well? Flipping heck, man, 2020 was crazy. How did you respond to the BLM? And as an artist as well, I think, this is a good question. As an artist, did you feel like a pressure to kind of have an opinion on it, to share about it, or,
Yeah, there's definitely a sense where, like, I knew where I stood on it.
Yeah.
Like, I put the whole thing out of, like, this is kind of an obvious thing. Like, of course, Black Lives Matter. One of the things I learned was like, it can be really unhealthy to have really like extreme sided views. I mean, it can be very literally black and white views. Like those kind of extremes just kind of really don't help. You can lose empathy for like the other side. You suddenly just don't like listening to other people. And like, I was really glad to be in counselling for this, just because there was like a week before I said anything, because I was so bombarded with information, like constantly. You're like, I know where I stand, but like, am I meant to be thinking like this? Like, this person on Twitter's made a really sassy tweet about how X, Y, and Z doesn't add up. And this person said, and you're constantly just like, I know where I stand, but like, there's loads of this information that's happening, and everyone else is putting out stuff. And then like, if you use something from the Black Lives Matter organization, then everyone will attack you for it. And then you run the risk of like, if I post something, I potentially lose. If I don't post something, I potentially lose. Like, it can be like such a like lose-lose situation, because no matter what you do, there's a potential to be cancelled. But as a Christian artist who is just like, or even just a Christian who wants to like have empathy for everyone and believes everyone is equal and created under God, then you should be putting something out when something doesn't match that sort of stuff. So like, again, the counselling, I got to like be there and just go talk through everything. And again, this was kind of when like still doing the Solitude project, and that's kind of when I was like, it's really easy to post a photo, but what are you actually going to do about it? Yeah,
I had the same thing.
So like, that's when we were like, right, okay, what can I actually do about it? So that's when I was like, right, I won't, for the first 3 months, I'm not going to earn anything off the Solitude project. It's just going to go to anti-racism education.
I mean, that's sick, man. Amazing.
So like, fine. Like, there we go. That's kind of like, I'll try and do that and then figure out what other stuff I can do around it. Like, that's just one thing. Like, that's not the end of it. Like, let's see how we can move this forward. I think one of the things that came through in counseling was the whole social media side of things. Like, you're locked in your house doing nothing. So you're constantly just like on your phone, just like glued to it.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got all those things coming through at you, like that can be really difficult to figure it out.
Yeah. With the BLM thing, I felt like the fact that we were locked down escalated everything so much because everyone was already frustrated. Yeah. And then it's almost like, sometimes if I'm in the house by myself all day and I'm with whoever it is, I'll get snappy with them. Just because I've been in all day. So you had this whole, like, it was almost the perfect storm of everything that happened at one time, of everyone being locked in. A lot of heightened emotions. And by the way, everything with the BLM and equality and all of that, 100% agree with. All lives are equal. Black Lives Matter. I also realised the significance of why Black Lives Matter was a great statement was because historically the way it's been treated is that Black lives don't matter. And I know that sounds silly, but to take the opportunity to really look at those kind of statements and go, what does that actually mean when you say it? Anyway, it was just really interesting. It was a mad one.
Like, I've just decided now that if anything like that, so to put it more into like recent stuff, like when everything that was going on with the Capitol building, my first,
I
know. So my first reaction was, what's going on Instagram? What are people saying? What, like, go on Reddit, try and find people's opinions, news, all of this sort of stuff, like constantly like trying to gauge what's going on in social media. So I've now like put a ban on it. If anything like this happens, so like get off social media during the explosion and wait till the fallout has happened, where you can kind of get an idea of what's actually happened versus what Bob 43 from someone who's not even there has said could be happening. Because also during the lockdown, that the social media documentary thing came out on Netflix. That was like a really big thing. Was it The Social Dilemma or something?
Oh, I vaguely remember watching that. All I remember about that time of the year though was Tiger King. Everyone was obsessed with Tiger King, and I remember watching See, I'm a savage. Anyway, sorry, but yeah, the social media thing you just said that I'd forgotten the name of.
So I'm really interested in social media stuff anyway, and how it works and how companies use it. I think that was kind of like good, really interesting to hear what founders of the company did to enable it at the beginning, of how they use it to like how they keep engagement, how they keep people there. When you actually learn how these things work and understand what they're trying to do to keep your attention, you can then use that not against them, but you can then actually learn how these things work to your benefit. So now if something happens like the Capitol, what was going on at the Capitol building, I switch on. So I use Sky News just because that's my personal preference. Nice. But I switch on Sky News and go, okay, what's going on? I give myself like a 10-minute limit. Okay, right. Is anything going on? Because it's like they'll just go every 10 minutes. They say the same thing anyway.
Yeah.
And you'll know if there's anything developing. And I'll go, as soon as they start getting people to give personal opinions, and I switch off, because I'm just like, I want to figure this out for myself. I need to learn it. And then I start to like, after a few days, then I'll go on social media and see what's potentially happening, because then I have a better understanding in my brain where I stand on it.
Nice.
Rather than having a load of information bombarded at it where I can't figure out what's going on, or I don't know, or I do know, but then because there loads of stuff is being bombarded at me, I then don't know what's going on. And I feel like I have a responsibility on my platform where if I was going to say anything, then I should be able to back it up with my own thoughts and feelings or facts, figures, whatever. So if I just go out and just start sharing random tweets, which might look good, might be really sassy, might be like, yeah, got ya. Actually, what's the substance behind it? What actually can someone take away from it? What actually, like, especially from a biblical process, like
that's what I was
the whole, like James was like, James 1 was like really pivotal the first time when the Black Lives Matter kicks off. And I posted it on my Instagram a few days ago. And like the whole passage from like 19 to 21 was like really like.
Yeah, I've just found it. I'll read it if you want. It's
go for it.
Post this at all the intercessions, dear friends. Lead with your ears, follow up with your tongue, and let anger straddle along in the rear. God's righteousness doesn't grow from human anger, so throw all spoiled virtue and cancerous evil in the garbage. In simple humility, let our gardener God landscape you with the word, making a salvation garden of your life. Man, that's sick, isn't it? That's so cool.
Like, as soon as you read that and then you put that into perspective of what has gone on, it suddenly like just reframes what you're looking at.
Mate.
Like, for me, that really helped. And then you suddenly go, okay, cool. Like, you kind of have like a step-by-step guide here of like how to figure this stuff out. Like, what is the godly approach to it? Well, okay, I need to stop first, listen to what's going on. Because when you stop, if you're angry and you stop, you kind of got time to process it and then not be so angry and then figure it out and then speak. Because I feel like we've flipped it at the moment. So we're getting really angry really quickly. We then shout about it and then we just don't listen to anyone. Like,
yeah, I agree.
It's like flipped. For me, that verse like carried me through most of everything that's been going on. And I still use it today. Like, I still have to remind myself of it constantly.
Yeah. That's really cool. You said something earlier as well that I've kind of realised in the last 2 years, and increasingly how important it is, especially from being a Christian, and just a Christian full stop. You don't have to be young, old. I think this is so important, is figuring out what you believe and why you believe it. And I know that sounds quite silly to say, like, well, of course, I believe in Jesus, I believe in this, but there's so many people who have been in the church their whole life. They've kind of inherited a faith, not literally. I know faith is personal, but they've inherited the Christian culture and kind of believe what their church pastors say or believe what this says and won't really question. And I think an amazing thing about faith is figuring out why you believe what you believe.
I think that was one of the other things that I learned through it was like when the churches closed down and everyone was going on about like they're trying to, I don't know, conspiracy against Christians or whatever. Yeah. Like trying to shut Christianity down. Church isn't a building. Like, it's just a building. The people inside it is what's going on. And like, we were still meeting online, still in a grow group, house group, life group, whatever group, home church thing that you want to call it. Like, we're still within that. I'm still doing fellowship, but that's still only one part of what really Christianity is. If your Christianity is going to a church building, then in my opinion, you've got it a bit wrong.
100%.
That throughout this point, I've really figured out how I tick within my faith. Like one of the things that I realized was like going to a church where you get told to sit, stand, listen, talk, coffee, home. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. And a biscuit if you're not on a diet, and one of those biscuits.
I mean, the new one we went to, they had breakfast, like, and it was like homemade breakfast. Like, it's great. So like that, it's fine. Like, I get it, and for some people, like, they like the structure, but like for me, like, I don't sing, so when I try and do sung worship and someone says stand and sing, I'm just like, I don't really sing. Like, I connect way more when I play an instrument because that's my God-given gift. Like, I play music. So like getting a drum kit at home, like I can now just play, and then I can have my own times where I can just play along to stuff and like worship at home. I've got all my instruments and stuff around me. I'm one of the lucky ones over here that can play most weeks in church as well and be able to lead other people in worship. But for me, when I worship by playing stuff, that's when I get the connection that I imagine people who sing get.
Yeah.
And I like, that's not me belittling like sung worship. It's a really important part of it. But for me, I connect way more when I play because that's how I express myself than singing. So like that kind of clicked for me a little bit. You're kind of also not reliant on doing Bible studies because, well, you can have church on demand now. Yeah. I can literally sleep in and then watch it at 12 o'clock. Like, you can kind of figure out your own rhythms and your own life. I think it's been a really cool reset, like in terms of like faith and church and stuff.
And for the church worldwide as well, actually.
Exactly. Like
everyone,
I posted earlier in the year. I was like, I genuinely think everyone's complaining about it not being what it was. But like when you look at the story of Moses, when he took people out of Egypt, everyone was so excited to leave Egypt. They were in slavery and all that sort of stuff. They got to the desert. And I always thought the story when they came out of Egypt, they're in the desert for 40 days or 40 years. Then they found the land, promised land. And then it was all happy ending. But then I realized that they came out of Egypt, then they found the promised land. They went, nah, got stuck in the desert for 40 years, complaining that they wanted to be back in Egypt. And then Moses sodded off somewhere and died. And you're just like, the whole time, like...
I was going to say, that's quite a brief synopsis.
Yeah. Hello, welcome to my Bible study. They were complaining that like they didn't have food because they were just eating bugs and stuff, and then suddenly God provided them with food, and then they didn't have any water, then God provided them with water, and they're still complaining so much that they wanted to go back to how it was, that they missed the whole point of why they were there, because they're going to a promised land. And I was just like, what if we're missing something here? Love your neighbor as yourself has never meant something so literal, because that's all the people you can see.
If you're looking at what is it, your outreach, the people you can outreach to, they're the only people.
Yeah, that was something like again through the year where I was like, I just don't want to miss anything that's going on. It might be nothing. It might be that we just go back to normal, and that's fine. It's more like let's be wary that we aren't just complaining so much, so we just want it to go back to normal and then just get stuck into the same patterns. We've got an opportunity to change our patterns.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this year, it wasn't like the biggest book in the Christian world, like the ruthless elimination of hurry.
I'm so wouldn't know. I have no clue.
I'm pretty sure that was like, I can't remember if it was 2020 or 2019, end of 2019. But it was this book was going around where it's basically like how to eliminate hurry and like stress and like needing to do everything out of your life. And everyone, loads of Christian circles were like, oh my goodness, it's such a good book. Yeah, I'm going to learn so much about it. And then literally hurry got taken out of people's lives. And then they went, oh man, I want to go back to how it was before.
Yeah.
And then like when summer kind of hit, things seemed like they were getting better COVID wise and whatnot. So, I managed to go see my sister. So my family all live away. Same with my wife's family. They all live all over the place. So mine are in Guernsey. So I got to see my sister because she had to come to Bristol. So I saw her for a day, which was awesome. And then during the summer, we could have like a barbecue with like two friends, and we're just like,
I remember that. Yeah.
So like, you're having like, we had like one or two barbecues with like close friends, and you kind of just start to be grateful for what you have and what you can do and
100%.
all these other bits and pieces. So like when we get the opportunities to see people and when we get the opportunities to do something, that's something that you kind of can't take for granted anymore. Like that's something
100%. 100%.
Take it and like be 100% in it.
I think everyone's been forced to kind of learn that lesson, haven't they? It's just like how valuable interaction with other people is, and not taking advantage of the fact that we've got relationship with people and we can have friends and they can come over and, we can even hug people just as a total, basic. Like I enjoy not hugging people, right? As in I only like hugging my mum, my dad, maybe my brothers and my girlfriend. That is it, right? Yeah. But then I'm seeing people, because I had to go back to work, and obviously with social distancing, they're going, oh, I just can't believe that I can't hug you. And I'm like, I'm really happy about it. But that's like really been so hard for some people. It's just that distance, mate. I got into, right? You mentioned gardens. I have to mention this. I got really into gardening in lockdown, especially during the summer. And I dug a whole vegetable patch in my parents' garden, and I was doing all the soil. I spent weeks figuring out how to get the best soil. It was because I'm an obsessive person. I think you're an obsessive person as well. Anything to get obsessed over, I love. And for me, it was literally soil. Weird. Just as a little side note, I know it's got nothing to do with the rest of the podcast. I just want to tell people about that.
I got really into coffee. Like I'm
nice.
I'm like deep. It's fine. I'll just put a photo of you over it and just put technical difficulties. I can't be
Oh no,
bothered to
technical difficulties. I'm going to take a photo now. And we still recording? I'm going to take a photo now so that you can see me.
Okay.
All right. And then you've got to use this one.
Awesome.
Do I look good?
You look perfect.
Thank you. So that was kind of summer of 2020. What about the end of 2020? How did that kind of go for WYLD?
I think it was, in general, I think it was okay. I kind of just focused on work stuff. I was kind of in a rhythm and a routine, kind of figured stuff out. That sort of thing was quite nice. In September, I realized I just fully burnt out. It got to our wedding anniversary, and I was like, the last time I had a holiday was our honeymoon. So I hadn't had a week off for a year. So it took time off after kind of getting to the point of being burnt out.
You do weekends as well, though, don't you?
Yeah. Because churches was I would MD on the Sunday because we broadcast live from church. So I would MD on a Sunday. So I'd prep everything and then MD on a Sunday. So I did 36 weeks in a row in 2020 of worship team. New PB.
So you took some time off.
Yeah, so I took I still did the Sunday because I didn't want to break the streak.
I love it. I'm burning out, but I still did the Sunday. Love it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was all that. What about Christmas? How was Christmas for you?
It was good. I just took time off. 2 weeks off. 1 week where I just did nothing but lay on a sofa, and then another week where I kind of just went through to try and figure out. Again, I think I put a load of good stuff in place for this year, so 2021, and also learned a lot through doing Solitude Project in terms of how do we build on what we did with the Solitude Project? What's the ideas with that? Chatting to Stephen about ideas and plans and seeing if any of our ideas that we're both doing can match up. We're finally going to be launching the clothing company that I've been working on for a year with a friend called Johnny who does all my artwork. So there's loads of stuff kind of tested, I suppose, in 2020 that we can then kind of bring and put into practice more in 2021, which is kind of exciting. And learning the lessons through 2020 have actually has helped a lot especially the first few weeks of 2021. I think the first week, everyone was like, I've had the free trial and I want to quit.
Literally. Did you mention the clothing stuff? Did you mention it just then? Talk a bit more about that.
Well, we announced what it was, and so it's called Holy Ghost Co. So it previously was launched under a guy called Joseph. Yeah, a guy called Joseph launched it a few years ago, and I worked with them to put out a top or a t-shirt when Takeover came out. Mm-hmm. Met him when I went to do a gig in Cornwall. Did Creation Fest. Have you ever done that?
We did Creation Fest and we were on the Sky TV Live or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the only time we've had proper technical difficulty is right there. We were performing and obviously we're a track act and the track cut out live TV. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So Ben, who's in Soulbox, he's a beatboxer. He started beatboxing and I sang. And the song that should have been 3.5 minutes, which is a song called Discrepancy, ended up being 50 seconds long. And then we were really new. It was our biggest gig ever. And then we just wandered off the stage. Literally, the video is hilarious. We look like rabbit in the headlights. It's a joke. It's so funny.
I did not play well. That was my first gig I ever did. It was when I can't watch it back because I'm just there's so much stuff I change.
That was the first gig you ever did?
Yeah. I've only ever done one gig as WYLD.
And that was it?
Yeah. No one's ever asked me back.
No one's ever... What's happened mate, what did you think of the Trump stuff? Sorry, if we're talking about 2020. Yeah. What did you think about all that at the end of the year? Because obviously we had the Joe Biden thing and then him talking about the election and it being rigged, Trump said, or whatever he said. I didn't really understand. It's way bigger and way smaller than I think people think it is. It's so hard to try and put it into a box of what the problem is. Because if you could do that, then you'd solve it, right? You'd fix it. Yeah. There's so much. Someone that I found during all of this was an artist called Ruslan, and he does some YouTube streams where
I found it helpful to understand an American point of view who kind of sits in the middle of the political spectrum. So someone who can kind of explain going, I like Republican ideas, I like Democrat ideas, I probably sit in the middle of them. I can see how this is bad, I can see how they're bad, I can see why this is good and why this is like, so it kind of like helps to gain and more of an understanding. So this is kind of the thing is like, I don't understand it. So I don't like, I think it's probably a smaller issue because it's just a smaller subset of people. But I can see how it can kind of grow into something that could be pretty bad further down the line. The last, like, again, like there's only a few weeks left of it. It's definitely not going to be the end of him. Like there's like, if people
shall
think
not be named.
If we think that these issues will go away once Trump is not president anymore, then I think we're being really blind. If you go back to what we were saying about the verse in James, like when you read that and apply that to these situations, for me, that kind of makes me realize like, I'm not insane by thinking that this is bad. Because again, the bombardment of information that you will get from social media about how the right is killing the left and how the left is killing the right. I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't get it. So trying to take the time to understand it, but also like I posted like some of the images just because I thought it was like, there was people there that are like, had like nooses, like had set up like hangman areas because they were going to like they wanted to hang Mike Pence. And I'm like, that's mad. that's crazy. So some of the images coming out of it, I was like, I think I said that I feel like I'm sat in the history book right now, or like just watching a history book being written. And I kind of get lost in that little bit where I'm just like, this is a bit crazy. Like never did I think I would see something like that. I don't have that affiliation to like the Capitol building as like a thing. And I think, I suppose you can kind of equate it to like, if it'd be like if when Brexit was a big thing that was so divisive as it was, it's like if a load of people just tried to storm Parliament and you're just like, that would be mad for us.
I find it quite hard sometimes with the America thing. I say the America thing, like we all know what I mean. I find it quite hard sometimes only because we're European, right? Mm. Whether or not we're in the EU, we're still European, right? As people, and we get filtered such a specific viewpoint of it that obviously I know there's so much going on that's wrong, and you can just see from some of the statements that Trump would make, and the same thing as you can just see with people storming the Capitol and stuff, that certain things are wrong, right? Obviously, but I don't even know if I can give an informed opinion on it.
Exactly.
All the stuff that we're fed is of a certain agenda, of a certain viewpoint, that it's so difficult, you know?
And it's also like the stereotyping certain subsets of people. You're going to get a wider spectrum of beliefs on the political scale. So not everyone who votes Republican might be a Trump supporter. Because we can easily go, anyone who voted Republican supports or did it because they believe what Trump does. It just might be that they have slightly more conservative views than that, and some of their stuff just tips it towards Republican. Same with anyone who supports Biden. Like Biden might not be the best person, but they just don't want Trump, so they do that. And when it becomes a problem is when everyone says, anyone who's voted this way is one set, like, is this. Anyone who voted the other way is this. You suddenly get this like kind of clashing, and then suddenly it becomes like, I feel like everything in the US is a game. So like, when you watch the election results in the UK, it's so dull to watch election coverage.
I do watch it, but it is really dull. It is really dull.
In the US, it's like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it's like there's that kind of creates again the emphasis of like your team won. They're like, therefore like it becomes more of like a team thing. So like I support Liverpool. If Liverpool do badly, then I don't feel that great during the day because I've just watched my team lose. And if you try and put that within politics, and then suddenly your affiliation is bigger and bigger and bigger, to that one side, then I think you can start to lose the point. I've never voted the same way in an election in the UK because I don't want to be fully Labour. I don't want to be fully Conservative. I don't want to be fully Green or Lib Dems. Like when it gets to the point, I go, what do I believe should be happening in the UK? What do I feel like God wants to be happening in the UK? And where does that fit within the policies the political parties doing, rather than just going blindly and voting for someone or something?
Yeah, because of almost family allegiance or inherited kind of culture or something.
I think social media hasn't helped in some cases where maybe we've been able to elevate a lot more people's opinions that wouldn't have been heard. And where previously you might not have wanted someone who has such extreme conspiracy, whatever views, however you want to put it, we kind of just give them a platform now and go, this is right. Yeah. Or not even that this is right, just kind of like, oh, look at this is weird, isn't it? By doing that sort of stuff, you kind of become part of the problem as well. So hence why I started trying to listen to news differently, and hence why I've started to try and learn more about this stuff so you can kind of make an informed thing. I think it's like I said before, I think it's a smaller problem than we think it is, but it could be a bigger one going down the line. And I don't think this is finished when Biden gets inaugurated.
What about now? Because that's kind of the year so far. Well, last year we've got there. It took a while. No, I'm joking. We're at the end of 2020. Finally, it's gone. Yeah. We can put that year behind us. What is going on with WYLD now? Or actually, first, you know what? Let's look at 2020. What are the lessons that you feel like you've learned?
Yeah, so I think like the four that we kind of went through was like, church isn't just a building. I think it can be really unhealthy to have very extreme-sided views and be really held on to them. I think you can start to be very tunnel vision, and that's when you suddenly get the divisions and the divisiveness. To get off social media during the explosion of an event, just wait a little bit, kind of trying to figure it out by yourself. Like wait till the fallout has happened when you can kind of gauge an understanding of what's actually happened rather than what everyone thinks has happened. And just being grateful for what you can do and what you have during whatever happens next in the next year. Those are kind of like the four things I think I took away from last year that have kind of helped and can kind of guide me through. And
what is happening now with you in terms of 2021? Do you have any clue what the next year looks like?
Yeah, I mean, launching the clothing brand will be cool. I'm excited about that. Just when I can take photos, because honestly, lockdowns, I can't take photos of anything right now. So we're trying to figure that out. That's all we're waiting for. All the lines and production is all sorted. I just need some photos. So trying to figure that out. There's a single coming out probably end of February, maybe. Nice. Depends on when artwork gets done. And I'm working on a first instrumental project to kind of see what that's like and what I can do with that. But like last year, there isn't really a plan, which is quite nice. There's a few ideas that were kind of like, some are further along than the others. And again, like trying to take what we did with Solitude and the lessons we learned from that, how we could do things better, I think are going to be another podcast of like what 2021 looks like for indie Christian music scene, because I think it's really exciting right now. But that's what I'm going to say on it, because I think that's another idea for a podcast that I've got with someone else. Time.
Well, I love that I've taken a lead. This is your podcast. Sorry. What next, Paul? Tell me. Where do we go? Is that the end of today?
Yeah, we're done now.
Great. Nice one, man.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate that. And we'll be back soon with some more interviews. And I think we'll bring John back. It depends what the audience reaction is. If it's bad, then he's fired. But yeah,
of course. Wait, I'm employed. Where's my money?
Shh. We don't talk about that.